Hi, so continuing our discussion on solving equations with variables on both sides. This time our goal is to identify equations that are identities or have no solution. But before that, let's have some examples first, just to refresh our knowledge on solving equations with grouping symbols. So as you can see here, on both sides of the equation, you have a multiplier and a grouped expression, so left side and right side. So again, the easiest technique that I can share with you here is that anytime you are seeing a grouping symbol and it has a multiplier outside, you always have to use your distributive property. So we start with the distribution. So distribute 2 to 5x and to -1. Okay, so this will now become 10x, positive 2 and -1. You multiply that, that's going to be times -2. Okay, so that will now be equal to, so let's do the distribution, 3 times x, that would be 3x. Okay, and then you will also have 3 and 11, that will now become 33. So as you can see, we have our equation, and we can see that we have the variables on both sides of the equation. So again, make sure that your variables are on one side, all the constants on the other side. So in this case, we would like to move 3x together with a 10 on the left side, so minus 3x minus 3x. And so 10x and 3x, -3x, that will give us a total of 7x. So we still have our -2 in there, and now it's just 33 on the right side. And so we need to move our -2 together with the constant 33. So here we add 2 to make it a 0. This now needs to be added by 2. And so our equation now gets to be simpler. We have 7x is equal to 35. And what do we do? Last step. So since our variable is attached to multiplication of 7, we divide by 7. That will now become 1. 35 you divide by 7. So the x value will now be equal to 5. So the only extra step here was the distribution that we did, but everything else we have gone over that part already. Okay, so I would like you to try this one on your own. Let's see what will be the value of y that you will solve. So applying your distributive property, you will end up having 8y plus 4 equals 2y minus 26. And then putting all your variables on the right side, on the left side, you'll have 6y. All your constants on the right side, it will now end up to be -30. So dividing by 6, y will be equal to -5. Okay, now not at all times you will get an exact value. You can try this one also on your own, and get those example done pretty much like what we have earlier. Okay, now not at all times you will be getting exact values of your variable. Sometimes you might get identities, or sometimes no solution at all. So how do you know if you have an identity or a no solution? So you will have an identity if the equation is true in every possible way. Okay, any value that you replace for the variable will make both sides of the equation true all the time. Okay, no solution, on the other hand, it means no value of the variable can make the equation true. So no matter what you do, your variable cannot be replaced by a specific value. Okay, so let's try out some examples of these. So let's have the first one in here. So as you can see, we have 10x plus 12, that's on the left side. You have 2 times 5x plus 6 on the right side. Now, as you can see, we have a grouping symbol here, so we can do our distribution on the side. Okay, so this is 10x plus 12, and as you can see, 2 times 5x, that's going to be 10x. 6 times 2, that's going to be 12. And you can see it's exactly same thing, okay? So this is when you have an identity. Now, if you did not notice that they are exactly the same thing and you realize, oh, I want to put all the variables on one side, all the constants on the other side, you can also do that, okay? So you will have your 10x here, it's gone, you have a minus 10x. And you can see now that this 10x on this side will get canceled as well because that's going to be a 0. So what are you left with? 12 equals 12, and that will always be true. And so this is when you have an identity, which means any value of x, you have infinite number of solutions in here, okay? Now let's have the other example. So on the right side here, we have 9m minus 4 is equal to negative 3m plus 5 plus 12m. Now, as you can see on the left side, no like terms that we can combine, but on the right side, we can combine negative 3m and positive 12m together. So that will now become, okay, so I just copied the left side. This is now 12 and minus 3, so that's going to be a 9m plus 5. All right, and so like what we always do, all the variables on one side, all the constants on the other side. So we will subtract 9m on this side and put it over here. Okay, now as you can see, 9m minus 9m, that's going to be 0 again. So that's going to be canceled. And what are you left with? You have a negative 4 on the left side. You have a positive 5 on the right side. And it says there that they are equal. Are they really equal? Definitely not, okay? So this is false. And so this means that if your equation is false, that's when you have no solution, okay? So that's pretty much it. If you have, so when we talk about identity, that's when you have an identity. You also have what we call as multiple solutions or infinitely many solutions. That's also another term for that, okay? So if the equation is true, then it has multiple solutions. If the equation that you end up with is false, then you do not have a solution, okay? So let's try out this next couple of examples. Go ahead, try to see if you have solutions on these equations. So if you work out these two equations here, you will see that the first here, the left side equation, will have infinitely many solutions. It's going to be an identity ending up with a negative 6 equal to negative 6. While the right side equation here, as you can see, you will end up having a positive 7 equals to negative 3, which is a false statement, and so there's no solution, okay? So to summarize all the topics that we talked about on solving equations, step number 1, always try to see if there's anything that you can distribute, okay? Because your goal is to remove any grouping symbols, okay? Distribute. Now, if ever there are fractions or decimals, you can use your properties of equality. Make sure that no decimals, no fractions in there. Fractions, you need to multiply by the LCD. Decimals, you have to multiply by a power of 10 based on the number of decimal places. Okay? Next thing, once all of these are done, you combine like terms, okay? Make sure that all the terms on each side of the equation, okay? And then you can move around your variables, making sure that one side has all the variables, the other side of the equation has all the constants. And then you use the properties of equality to solve for the variable. And lastly, always check your solution using the value that you got for the variable, plug it into your original equation and see if it makes sense, okay? So solving equations on both with variables on both sides, you can use the properties of equality, the inverse operations, to make sure that you can get the equations to be much simpler. Okay.